Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Tony, what's that?
Aha. I've got some things in this bag, Vanessa, and I want you to tell me this. What have they got in common? ¿Qué tienen en común?
A newspaper. A battery. A plastic bottle. A glass bottle. A tin can.
That's all. Well, what have they got in common?
They're all rubbish. When you've used them, you throw them away. Se tiran.
What do these pieces of rubbish have in common? We'll answer that question in a moment. But first, we asked some British people this question. What do you do with your rubbish?
Well, I recycle everything that I can, such as newspapers and bottles, and batteries too.
At home, we recycle all our newspapers and all glass that we have, bottles, etc. We take to the bottle bank nearby.
We collect newspapers, tins and bottles for recycling.
I live with 3 people and we save newspapers and take them back to be recycled. And we also save tin cans and plastic bottles to recycle as well.
I drink a lot of canned drinks. I tend to put them in bins for recycling.
Suelo dejarlas en los contenedores de reciclaje. I tend to put them in bins for recycling.
Recycling. That's the important word. And that's the answer to my question at the beginning of the programme. What have these things got in common?
Yes, of course. These are all things that you can recycle.
10 out of 10.
Thank you. There are lots of other things that people do to help the environment.
I don't drive, so I suppose that's good for the environment. I always take the bus or go by train or bicycle. I think that's my main contribution to helping the environment.
Well, I never throw litter, and I collect glass bottles when I use them and deposit them in bottle banks. But apart from that, there's not really very much I do.
To protect the environment, I use unleaded petrol in my car, and I sometimes recycle old newspapers, but I probably don't do enough.
When I'm at home in Yorkshire, I help by restoring a local steam railway and planting trees alongside the track.
Yes, lots of different ways to help the environment. Not driving a car.
Taking the bus, train or bicycle.
Using unleaded petrol, gasolina sin plomo.
Restoring a local steam railway, restaurando el antiguo trazado de un ferrocarril de vapor.
And planting trees alongside the track. Y plantando árboles a lo largo de las vías.
Well, we obviously have lots of environmental problems in the 20th century. But what problems did they have in previous centuries?
Let's find out. Over to the That's English newsroom.
News. First, the headlines. In 1 year, over 30,000 people die in London from the plague. And the first coaches are seen on the streets of London. But the main story of the century is the terrible plague. Over to our health correspondent, Sir Sidney Walsingham. Sir Sidney, does anyone have any idea what causes this plague?
Well, Trevor, doctors don't agree. Some doctors are saying we're being punished by God. Others are saying it's all in the stars. And 1 or 2 doctors say that the plague might be carried by the common flea.
The flea? But the flea is so small.
That's right, Trevor. You see, fleas live on rats, and the rats eat the dead bodies of the animals and humans that are left in the streets. They say that is where the plague comes from. So it's back to you in the studio, Trevor.
And now for the rest of the news. The first coaches from Holland have arrived in London. Everybody wants one. Although they're very uncomfortable, they keep the rain out. The new coaches, which are pulled by 1, 2 or 4 horses, are already causing traffic problems in the city. Sir Walter said it took him over 2 hours to get to the Tower. And Queen Elizabeth herself has said that something needs to be done about the traffic problems soon. That's all from That's English News. Goodbye.
Well, their problems weren't exactly the same as ours, but they were very similar. First, there was the plague, la peste. Did you hear? What causes the plague?
Some doctors are saying we're being punished by God.
We're being punished by God. Es un castigo de Dios.
Others are saying it's all in the stars.
It's all in the stars. Está escrito en las estrellas.
1 or 2 doctors say that the plague might be carried by the common flea.
The plague might be carried by the common flea. Puede que la peste la transmita la pulga común.
Did you notice the use of the passive there? The plague might be carried. Here's another example of the passive. When the newsreader talked about the traffic problems, he said,
Queen Elizabeth herself has said that something needs to be done about the traffic problems soon.
Something needs to be done about the traffic problems soon. And now it's time for...
How to be British. Understatement.
Los británicos rehuyen sistemáticamente la exageración y en su lugar tienden a usar lo que llaman understatement, que es justamente lo contrario. It's a well-known British characteristic.
We're going to meet a man who is President of the Conservation Society and Director of the National Wildlife Association.
Fíjate en cómo quita importancia a las cosas, a pesar de su evidente preocupación por la conservación de la naturaleza. Listen carefully. Can you hear any examples of understatement?
Isn't it terrible?
What is?
The 8-lane motorway at the bottom of your garden.
Yes. I'm afraid that it is quite a busy road, isn't it?
It certainly is. You have to shout because of the noise.
I'm sorry?
I said you have to shout.
Yes.
There used to be such a wonderful view from your house.
Yes. It is a bit of a shame that a few trees were cut down.
A few trees? You used to have the most beautiful forest at the end of your garden.
Yes. It was rather nice, wasn't it?
It was full of wildlife.
Well, there were one or two wild animals in the trees.
And you had those birds, you know, the ones with the green and red feathers.
Ah, yes. Woodpeckers.
Yes. Are you still president of the Conservation Society?
Yes. Wildlife interests me quite a lot, you know.
And you're a director of the National Wildlife Association?
Yes. Oh, well. Never mind, eh? It can't be helped. The motorway had to go somewhere.
What a strange man.
But very typical of a lot of English people. He used a lot of understatement. No siempre sus palabras reflejaban lo que realmente quería decir.
Yes. It is a bit of a shame that a few trees were cut down.
It is a bit of a shame that a few trees were cut down.
He meant it's terrible that a lot of trees were cut down. Tony, why does he talk like this? Why do so many English people talk like this?
Porque no es tan directo, es menos agresivo y más educado, y porque así es el inglés.
We've just got time for one more thing. Here is an organisation that spends all its time fighting for the environment. It's called Greenpeace. According to the film, how successful has Greenpeace been in its campaigns to protect the environment?
Its methods are often controversial, but what is undeniable is that as a pressure group, Greenpeace is often highly successful, in terms both of its campaigning and its publicity machine. On other issues, Greenpeace has stopped nuclear waste dumps, delayed missile firings, and highlighted the issue of whaling. Supporters and skeptics do agree on one thing. In a quarter of a century of campaigning, Greenpeace has been a major player in forcing the environment firmly onto the international agenda. Jonathan Munro, ITN, in the Bay of Biscay.
In Red Square, some of the biggest names in rock spoke up for Greenpeace.
It's an absolutely vital message, and if people don't get the message, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years or so. I mean, Russia in particular has tremendous problems ecologically, like every other country.
The Chernobyl disaster was responsible for a big change in attitude in Russia, and I think, I mean, it's a terrible thing, but I think that's in a way why Greenpeace is being allowed in.
Yeah, they're in a hell of a state here. They've got a lot of problems, like the rest of the world.
People do talk very much about industrial problems. Air pollution, water pollution, agricultural overuse of pesticides and fertilizers, but we really have an awful lot to learn here.
We asked you how successful Greenpeace had been in its attempts to protect the environment.
As a pressure group, Greenpeace is often highly successful, in terms both of its campaigning and its publicity machine.
Well, the environment is a big topic, isn't it? And I think that the really difficult question is this. What can we do about the environment?
Well, you can start by tidying up this mess. Come on.
Vanessa, would you mind? Just a minute. Stop, you can't do that.
Why not? We can't leave the studio looking like this.
Yes, but it can be recycled. I can take this bottle to the bottle bank. I can use this plastic bottle when I go on picnics, and...
Bye for now. See you for our next programme, I hope.
Let me see. Well, I could take it to my grandmother's house, and she can use it on her